Hey, what's up guys, TotallyDubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the massive Asus ROG Strix XG35VQ. Now this monitor can be found for a whopping £800 on Amazon.co.uk and $800 in the US. I know, damn you USA, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, in terms of its specs, you can find it in the link in the description below. However, in terms of its top line specs, the things that you should know, it runs at a resolution of 3440 times 1440p. That's at 100 Hz natively. It has a VA panel which runs around 4 milliseconds response time, at least quoted. It has a 1800R curvature, which is a little bit better for immersion. In terms of its screen size, it's a 35-inch monitor. In terms of inputs, you've got a HDMI 1.4, HDMI 2.0 and DisplayPort. You've got a 3.5mm jack for your headphone output, and then you've got two USB 3.0 ports in case you want to connect it up versus connecting up to your PC. Now, other than that, let's just go into the build quality. Now, first of all, what I've noticed when I got it out the box, other than its massive size, is its three-side borderless design. It's really nice to see this incorporated on a massive monitor like this, because it means that it's a little less bigger on your desk. Still, it's a massive panel. Now, in terms of the build quality of it, it's absolutely fantastic. I've got no problems with it. The monitor is held up sturdily. It has height adjustment and tilt thanks to its massive stand at the back. And it's got a joystick control at the back over here on the right hand side, which is really useful for accessing the OSD, which I'll show you in just a bit. The only complaints I had was its stand, just like another Asus ROG monitor I reviewed. It's quite a big stand, therefore you just want to bear that in mind before placing it on your desk, because you might not have space. Now, other than that, it's got a Asus logo, which is at the bottom, as you can see, it's a red little LED, and it's got the Aura RGB at the back, which is great for looks, but in terms of actual real-world usage, because of the size of the monitor, you're never going to see that RGB color illumination at the back. Even if you have a pitch black screen, I think just because of the size of the monitor, you're just not going to see it. Nevertheless, it's good to have it there, and it's a nice little inclusion. It might just look good at a LAN party if you were ever to take this absolute beast out to a LAN party. So build quality wise, I've got no complaints. Let me just quickly jump in the OSD, because I feel it's quite important to show you guys my settings, and I also want to go through certain things with you just to show you them. So first of all, in the game visual bit, you've got different sort of settings. I've got it on user mode. You can also set it to sRGB mode, which I'll get into in just a bit. You've got blue light filter, you've got color mode. You can see brightness 100, contrast 80, color temperature user mode, R as 100, G as 97, B as 100. That's at least my settings on custom mode. Image settings, I've got OD, which is overdrive on level 4. Again, I'll get into that in just a bit. ACR, it's like a dynamic contrast. I wouldn't suggest putting it on, but you can if you want. ELMB, it's ultra low motion blur, which again I'll get into a bit. This has adaptive sync / FreeSync, which is currently off. I think its FreeSync range is about 48 Hz to around 100 Hz, which is pretty low, but nevertheless it has it there. And then you've got PIP PMB settings as well, input selection, and system settings, which you can change the light in motion, which is the light at the bottom, and then the Aura RGB, which is the light at the back. It's good that you can customize it and have it there. So you can see currently running at 3440 times 1440p at 100 Hz. Now, in terms of its panel quality, how does it do? So I did mention there sRGB mode, and yes, sRGB mode is the mode that you should use if you want to be using this for image editing or video editing. But is it any good? Well, I put it through a calibrator, and I found the results to be a little bit, not say mixed, but overall in terms of color accuracy, it does a fantastic job. However, it has got some sort of extremity, so in the blues and the purples, it seems to be being quite vastly off. You can see the red mark quite there. It's quite far out. Other than that, it does a decent job. However, at sRGB mode, you're limited to around 180 CDM2, which is very, very dull. On the plus side, if you disable this, you can get to around, I think, around 300, the 300 mark, just to make sure, before I tell you anything, I just make it sure, yeah, 350 CDM2, which is plenty bright, and that's great. As you can see right now, it's in user mode. It's bright enough to be used in a bright sunlit room, so I have no problems with that. Its contrast ratio is a little bit low at 1100 to 1. I expected just a little bit more given its panel type. Nevertheless, it is okay. It does a decent job in the calibration results. What I was quite impressed about was its uniformity. Yet again, Asus have knocked it out of the park over here to have a good brightness uniformity across the screen. This means you're not going to get odd dark shadows on the left or right hand corners, for example. You're going to get a nice even spread in terms of the image quality. So impressed with what Asus have done there, especially for its big size monitor. Now, in terms of real world usage, when I looked through a couple of pictures, what I noticed was the lacking contrast ratio. It did lack a little bit, it just wasn't popping as much as I wanted it to. It's decent, it's okay, it's better than a TN panel, some TN panels especially that I've seen, even on the ultra wides, but still I just expected just a little bit more given its panel type. In terms of color accuracy, again, it was good. It's acceptable, especially if you're a gamer. In terms of photo editing, video editing, yes, you could actually use this for a color accurate display. I would definitely use it for that. Its sRGB coverage was almost 100%, so it's very impressive in terms of that as well. In terms of deep blacks and the white point, I did feel that it did lack sometimes the accurate whites. Other than that, the deep blacks were good. They were satisfactory, at least to my experience, especially for an ultra-wide monitor. Yet again, it is fit for purpose. It's an ultra-wide gaming monitor, not a professional grade monitor. So you have to set your expectations. So in terms of that, no problems. Now in terms of gaming performance, now it's 100 Hertz panel, and I did run it through UFO blur busters, and yes, it is ready and it does pass my frame skipping test, which is great. Some monitors don't actually do that despite them being advertised as 100 Hz monitors. And then I launched up some CounterStrike to see how it did. Now here the results were really mixed. And I don't know what was happening over here, but I have a GTX 1080 which is perfectly capable of outputting a high FPS, or at least decent FPS when it comes to CounterStrike, and I was getting sometimes little choppy scenes. I'm not really sure why, but nevertheless that did occur, and I'm not sure if that's to the graphics card level, game level, or the monitor, but I just thought to mention that just in case, because I just want to be honest with you guys from what my perceived experience is. Now, in terms of the response time of the monitor, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It actually did well, but it's not a monitor I would use for competitive gaming. It's a little slow to respond when it comes to its response time, and its input lag is a tad slow as well. So if you're a competitive gamer, first of all, you're never going to go for such a big monitor like this anyway, but I thought I should mention it because if you're a competitive gamer, I wouldn't select this monitor. If you're a casual gamer, however, this will be perfectly fine in terms of response time, so don't expect to be playing CounterStrike at a high level, but expect to be playing, I don't know, let's say an RTS game, which doesn't really require the fastest response time in the world, but can look big and useful for seeing your strategies and multitasking or whatever it might be, or MMORPGs, for example. Other than that, in terms of its overdrive, I was impressed at its level 4 overdrive setting. It's actually very low in terms of its overall input lag. Its response time. It's very fast, and therefore you see very low amount of ghosting. Now on ELMB mode, what I noticed is that the ELMB mode does actually increase the overall ghosting, which is slightly surprising given the fact that I was expecting it to be completely eliminated. This was not the case, so even though Asus claim as this, it's supposed to reduce the motion blur, I just didn't notice, it reduced motion blur as it says, but it added some overshoot ghosting, which was not something that I wanted. So overall, in terms of game performance, it does a decent job, and yes, I can recommend it for casual gamers, but not someone who's a serious competitive gamer like myself. So overall, what do I think of the monitor? In all honesty, it's a decent monitor. It does a decent job, but that's the thing. It's a decent monitor. It's not an amazing monitor, and in comparison to the AOC AG352 UCG, I know, a mouthful, which is pretty much the exact same monitor, except comes with NVIDIA G-Sync instead, rather than AMD FreeSync, then this monitor is kind of it's kind of put at a disadvantage. Unless you have an AMD graphics card and you're pro AMD, then this monitor might be a little bit better than the AOC that I just mentioned. On the other hand, the AOC would be a much better choice if you're an NVIDIA owner, and in terms of casual gaming, it was perfect for casual gaming, but not the monitor I would use for competitive gaming, very much like this Asus monitor. So overall, yes, this Asus monitor is a decent monitor, but given its competitors, which one costs less offer NVIDIA G-Sync versus AMD FreeSync, and have a similar sort of performance, I would choose the AOC over the Asus in this respect. Not to say the Asus is bad, but it could be better, especially at £800 price tag. So there we go, guys. That's my honest opinions and review of the monitor. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Make sure you give it a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in comments below what you think of the monitor. And there we go. Take care, guys. TotallyDubbed out. Bye-bye.